We're back tonight with a special 10 Investigates report called Caught in the Cycle. 10 Investigates found since 2015, 20 children have died while in the care of custody of Franklin County Children's Services.
Our story tonight focuses on that issue. It is the first in a series of stories that will examine children caught in the cycle of foster care. We'll take a look at tragic events, the challenging landscape for caseworkers and caregivers, and we'll explore possible solutions and hold to account those in power.
Here's Chief Investigative Reporter Bennett Haberly.
There is no question there are children in need.
Kill me, shoot me, shoot me, shoot me. Shoot no, shoot me.
Bro, like what the bro? I just got set up in all of it.
This police body camera footage provides a small window into part of what happens at Franklin County Children's Services Intake Center in Whitehall. Children come into the agency's care from various paths. What happens at this intake center is just part of the cycle that can start with referrals from juvenile court or from a child with behavioral or mental health needs. Any of those can lead to a path of children's services and foster care placements.
She's in crisis. She was taken away from her parents today.
Franklin County Children's Services, the agency tasked with removing kids from harm, acknowledges that since 2015, 20 children in their care have died, which begs more questions.
When kids end up in negative outcomes, either they end up dead or they end up in an incident that claims another life, what role does the county play for that?
Yeah, we play a role, our community plays a role, right? Children are a product of our community. Children are homegrown, and we're all responsible for the health and wellness of all families in our community.
But families of the children who died question what level of protection was provided.
After he was murdered, I contacted them. They immediately came out, dropped off his belongings, said they could not assist in any funeral expenses, and then I get a letter saying the case was closed.
Tony Howard helped raise her grandson, DeJuan Lewis Taylor, after his mother died. Following her death, his behavior changed. A domestic incident at home landed him in juvenile court. Tony says Franklin County Children's Services took custody, placed him at Maryhaven, where she says after a 2-week stay, he was assaulted by another teen and ran away.
Children's Services did not go out looking for him. They told me, they came to our house and told us they do not have time to look for missing children. If DeJuan calls, tell him to turn himself in, or you can turn him in.
Children's Services told 10 Investigates it disputes that, saying it does look for missing children. 2 weeks later, though, in late September of 2020, DeJuan was shot and killed on Columbus's north side. The next month, Tony says she got this letter from Franklin County Children's Services saying there was no longer a need for their care.
And for that clause to say no need for protective services, what were they protecting? They wasn't protecting him.
The system failed my daughter. The system failed other children. And there needs to be some reform to the system.
What's going on?
Hey! Paula Bryant's daughter, Micaiah, died 6 months after DeJuan. Her death initially drew national attention, in part because it involved a Columbus police officer fatally shooting her. During this encounter, body camera footage shows the 16-year-old engaged in a fight and later holding a knife near a woman. A 10 Investigates review of police records found that since 2016, Columbus police had responded to her foster home at least 29 times. 16 of those calls were for missing persons reports. A few others were for things like fights.
They're gonna fight and I don't want to be here no more.
You're placing kids in foster homes where there have been active police runs, and people looking at that without an extensive knowledge of social work would say that doesn't seem right. So why does that happen?
Well, let me give a couple of examples, I think, that add a little bit of context to why would the police respond to a foster home.
Intake Director Laura LaRoche told me foster parents are required to contact authorities for teens who run away.
Youth are coming into our care, experiencing these behaviors. Is it reasonable to believe that those behaviors will cease through the act of giving the agency custody? No.
Of the 20 cases of children who died, half were the result of gun violence.
It's sad, so who's held accountable? Or they just label them as a number, or, well, this was a problem child, and oh well. No, that's a life that you took ownership of to protect in your letter. So what happens?
And we asked Laura LaRoche what her agency would say to those families. She says that we grieve with them. Our reporting on this is not done. You'll hear more from our conversation with Franklin County Children's Services in the coming days as we discuss other issues and some possible solutions. In our next report, we'll examine another problem. What happens when a foster child is involved in an incident that kills someone? That's tomorrow night at 6.
Tonight, 10 Investigates uncovers another story of what happens when children end up caught in the cycle of foster care. And this next story will illustrate how life can change in an instant.
We're about to closely examine one incident, one fatal crash and its connections to the foster care system. Here's Chief Investigative Reporter Bennett Haberly with the gaps he's uncovered.
449, I got one out. He's in bad shape. We're working on trying to get the other one out. Vehicle's on fire.
In an instant, life can change. This crash on No Bixby Road last October is evidence of that.
447, tell fire to step it up.
It happened in the moments after a Madison Township police officer tried to pull over this Mercedes and the 15-year-old driver behind the wheel.
Stay calm, buddy, okay? Your leg?
Yes.
Anywhere else?
No, it's
Okay.
not my leg.
Put your hands on your chest like this. There you go. Just stay calm. Stay calm, buddy.
Moments earlier, a 911 call from a foster parent.
I didn't report a stolen car just now. He's an autism kid, disabled. He is 15 years old. It's a blue Mercedes.
Ma'am, stay with me, okay?
45 on scene, 41 block of Chatterton.
Stay with me.
In an instant, lives changed forever.
I miss her very, very much.
Tonda Shaw lost her mother, Paula Kennedy, in that crash. The Groveport Madison school secretary died alongside her dog. Tonda's father had passed away weeks earlier.
Now, my children have absolutely no grandparents. And that's really hard. It's incredibly stressful.
But 10 Investigates has learned this wasn't the first time the teen was caught driving illegally.
Has he done this before?
Yes, with another foster care.
This fatal crash marked the third time the 15-year-old had driven illegally within the past year. The first instance happened in January of 2021, when the then 14-year-old was charged by Worthington police with criminal damaging, accused of driving a GMC SUV through the soccer field of a school. Juvenile court declared him delinquent, but that case was dismissed by late June. 2 months later, another case, grand theft of a motor vehicle, a Dodge minivan, allegedly stolen from this foster home in Dayton. Images you can see on Google Street View. Columbus police recovered it at a gas station on 5th Avenue here in Columbus. But the teen wasn't charged with that case until October 22nd, leaving a gap where no charges were filed, meaning he wasn't placed in juvenile detention, but in another foster home. And 12 days after that minivan was reported stolen, the teen is accused of taking this Mercedes, which ends in that fatal crash. 10 Investigates also found this, a series of police reports dating back 3 years to the teen's foster home for complaints about missing persons, stolen cars, and domestic violence.
They fell short. That child, it wasn't that kid's first time in Children's Services care. He was 15. It was their job to make sure that he was safe and anybody who could have been around him were safe, and they did not.
We wanted to know how often this happens, where a child in the care of Franklin County Children's Services is involved in an incident that claims another life. A spokeswoman for the agency said she couldn't tell us because they don't track it. There may be some people who see this and look at it and say, Franklin County Children's Services has a tough job. Is it fair to blame them?
They do have a tough job. However, that's their job. That is their job, to make sure, if they deem a child or children not safe in a home, it is their job to make sure that they are safe and they're put in a safe situation and that people around them are okay and safe.
It is important to point out 7 months later, no one has been charged in connection to that crash. Columbus police tell me it is still under investigations. The teen's mother declined our request for an interview. Tonda, by the way, tells me that her mother's legacy continues. 9 Groveport Madison students earned scholarships last night in her honor. Franklin County Children's Services has said it cannot discuss individual cases. In our next report, we'll look at another issue, foster placements inside behavioral treatment centers. That's tomorrow night at 6.
Well, there's increasing demand for mental health or behavioral treatment for children caught in the cycle of foster care.
10 Investigates continues its work looking into how county agencies often turn to private companies for help. But as 10 Investigates uncovered incidents of violence, abuse, and kids running away happen inside private facilities kept afloat by public dollars.
Chief investigative reporter Bennett Haberly tonight with the tough questions that so far have been met with silence.
Give us your arms. Quit resisting.
This interaction between Richland County Sheriff's deputies and a teen unfolded inside Abraxas, a behavioral treatment center for boys in Shelby, Ohio. It ended in a struggle.
Stop or you're going to get tased. Quit resisting.
Deputies were called here to make an arrest after a reported assault.
Oh, he's fighting.
It was one of more than 20 assault reports deputies responded to within the past 2 years. These photos show some of the injuries children here have inflicted on each other. The state is also aware of at least 15 reports of abuse and neglect, where boys claim they've been hurt by staff through restraint holds or other means.
They seen him right here on 39 a little bit ago going towards Ontario.
In the past 2 years, sheriff's deputies have also responded to more than 24 reports of kids running away.
Chill coffee.
I think he's Columbus.
Among them, 14-year-old Brylan Butcher from Ross County.
Sheriff's office, come out now.
Who went AWOL repeatedly, once on Christmas and again in late January.
Who are you with, breakfast? Yeah. I bet you this gets old. Oh, yeah.
Eventually, deputies found him and another team near a junked car lot.
Yeah. No, I'm familiar. You like to run, Brylan. Man, running from
Stole a car the last time.
running from problems isn't going to help you.
In late February, records show Brylan took off again. On March 5th, he was found dead in an alleyway in Columbus's Hilltop neighborhood. He had been shot.
He was never there because he wasn't wanted. He was never there because he wasn't loved. That was never an issue. Did we think that he was going to go, and obviously do what they were supposed to do and get some sort of reform?
Brylan's aunt, Rachel Hill, says her family is not trying to paint a completely rosy picture. Brylan had problems, she said, which is why his family wanted him to get treatment. They did not anticipate, she said, that a private facility contracted with at least a half dozen children's services agencies would allow incidents like this to persist.
We would never have imagined for a minute or even remotely expected that they would ever leave him in the hands or care of somebody that wasn't, equipped or, able to take care of him or to understand, like, hey, this kid does run. He's got one goal in mind, he's coming home.
10 Investigates made 3 attempts to speak with Abraxas officials. After leaving a couple of messages, we came here to Abraxas, hoping to get answers to our questions about the number of incidents that have happened here. A woman inside the reception area told me that there was no administrator available to answer our questions. County children's services agencies from across the state still send kids to private facilities like Abraxas. Sequel Pomegranate in Columbus closed last year in wake of abuse allegations, and Mohican Youngstar Academy has had to defend its license against threats from the state to revoke it. Since 2015, all 3 of these facilities have billed Ohio's Medicaid office for more than $75 million.
This place is still open. There's still kids in there. And who knows? There's probably been kids there that's ran away since Brylan. Who knows? Because we're not going to hear about it until it's too late and they're found in an alley.
Brylan's family says they've heard rumors about what brought him to Columbus, but nothing concrete.
Right now we're facing a lot, with the loss of Brylan because there's just so many unanswered questions and such, a senseless act that was committed. One of the questions that we have is like Abraxas being the place that was put in charge of his care last, they failed terribly. They failed the kid terribly.
And Brylan's murder remains unsolved. Our questions to Abraxas about supervision and the money it's billed the state, well, those remain unanswered. New research shows children in foster care in Ohio are sent to institutions or group homes at a higher rate than other children in other states. We'll discuss that and have more tough questions for those in power when our series continues tomorrow at 6.
This week, 10 Investigates has shared months worth of research that uncovered problems inside the foster care and behavioral health system in our state.
Our chief investigative reporter, Bennett Haberly, found children caught in the cycle wound up dead, hurt, or hurting others. Tonight, the final story, where Bennett goes directly to Franklin County Children's Services with tough questions about what's happening to our most vulnerable citizens.
Bro, like what the bro? I just got set up in all of it.
These images can be hard to watch.
Kill me, shoot me, shoot me, shoot me. No, shoot me.
The facts alongside them equally troubling. Children caught in the cycle of foster care in Ohio face worse outcomes compared to the rest of the country. New research from the advocacy group Child Defense Fund Ohio shows foster kids in our state are more likely than kids elsewhere to be placed in group homes or institutions, including facilities like the ones we've uncovered.
Give us your arms. Quit resisting.
The ones where kids have hurt each other or alleged that staff hurt them. The ones that have billed the state for millions of dollars in public Medicaid reimbursement.
Hey, what's going on? Hey!
And the foster homes where we found numerous police runs. The data also shows kids in Ohio are more likely to be mistreated while in foster care and less likely to be reunited with their families.
The system failed my daughter. The system failed other children.
Since 2015, 20 children have died while in the care and custody of Franklin County Children's Services. Across the state in that same time period, that figure balloons to 128 children who died while in the custody of a county agency.
You waiting for it to get higher to do something? 20 deaths, that's 20 people who's lost a child.
In a 30-minute-long interview, Franklin County Children's Services told 10 Investigates it faces unique challenges, with more children with mental health needs entering their system, more referrals, and turnover among staff. It begs the question.
Is the county keeping up with the demand?
I'm not sure that I've seen a system nationally that is keeping up with the demand.
So is that a no?
Families need more help in our community than is available.
But again, my question is about Franklin County Children's Services. Are you guys keeping up with the demand?
Yeah, could we Can we take a second?
For what purpose?
Well, could you repeat the question?
Is Franklin County Children's Services keeping up with the current demand?
I think it's fair to say we don't have access to resources that many families need.
Laura LaRoche is the intake director with Franklin County Children's Services.
We really have to come together as a community and understand that our teens are suffering. So many teens across our system, across our county, are desperately struggling with mental health challenges and don't have access to the services that they need.
10 Investigates also spoke with Scott Britton, who works for a nonprofit that represents the public children's service agencies across the state.
We believe that our children's services agencies do a very good job, and I think a lot of the numbers speak for themselves. We work with more than 100,000 investigations of abuse and neglect every year. There are more than 26,000 children who move through the foster care system at any time during the year, and on any given day we have more than 15,000 children in foster care in
But shouldn't
Ohio.
that number be zero? I mean, shouldn't there be 0 dead kids since 2015?
I don't know of any state or local child welfare system that hasn't had fatalities, unfortunately.
He says part of the solution is that Ohio needs more foster parents, more frontline workers, needs more alternative programs like early intervention in juvenile court and better access to mental health care that would prevent or delay referrals to county-run children's services agencies.
It sounds like you're acknowledging that the current landscape isn't working.
That's what we acknowledged when we released our Children's Continuum of Care Reform Plan in 2018, that Ohio has some room to grow in this area. We are,
so that's a yes.
We are behind some other states in terms of where we need to be.
And plans have been in the works to create a state ombudsman so that children can report if they're being mistreated or abused while in foster or residential care. Another note, starting July 1st, Ohio Rise will begin. It's a special Medicaid managed care program, basically a funding source so that families can access things like a mobile crisis unit and other mental health interventions. The aim, to keep children in their homes rather than becoming part of the cycle.